Good evening, friends and family, and active listeners to our Political Gravity podcast. I was looking back into my years where I attended Cal State Northridge, and I was thinking about the things that I studied regarding judicial activism in light of the recent decision by the Supreme Court to protect all official acts of the United States president from being encroached upon or criminalized. I would like to go back and bring up some highlights of the impeachment of Samuel Chase, the Bush v. Gore election, the circumstances surrounding Watergate, and most of this is from my memory. I will also be having some callers in that are my regular political gravity hosts, and they might interrupt or change the direction of the conversation. So I'm going to start first with Samuel Chase, which is a well-known case in 1804 that the justices were under scrutiny, and he was ruled by the House of Representatives to have been impeached. In fact, he was impeached, but the Senate protected him in the end. So I'm just going to read a paragraph or two so you can get a broad-based perspective on why he was impeached. Samuel Chase had served on the Supreme Court since 1796. A staunch Federalist with a volcanic personality, Chase showed no willingness to tone down his bitter partisan rhetoric after Jeffersonian Republicans gained control of the Congress in 1801. He had also served in the Maryland State Assembly. Representative John Randolph of Virginia, at the urging of President Thomas Jefferson, orchestrated impeachment proceedings against Chase, declaring he would wipe the floor with the with the obnoxious justice. The House voted to impeach Samuel Chase on March 12, 1804, accusing Mr. Chase of refusing to dismiss biased jurors, of excluding, limiting defense witnesses in two political sensitive cases. The trial managers, who were members of the House of Reps, hoped to prove that Chase had behaved in an arbitrary, oppressive, and unjust way by announcing his legal interpretation on the law before defense counsel had been heard. Highlighting the political nature of the case, the final article of impeachment accused the justice of continually promoting his political agenda on the bench, thereby tending to prostitute the high judicial character which is supposed to be regarded and invested to the low purpose of electioneering partisanship. So their decision really was based on their perception. I have a caller already. Hi, Don.
Hello.
I'm still doing the introduction, so you can just, you don't have to put yourself on mute. Just let me finish, okay?
No problem.
So this was partisan versus partisan action. The House members in the Congress did not like the direction the Justice Samuel Chase was taking, and his ability to protect federalism at all costs, meaning that he protected the federal right of the Supreme Court and the executive branch versus state rights. So they tried to dismantle him, but about a year later, he retained his position and he never was removed from office. In the same way, we've had two recent experiences, at least in my lifetime. We had Nixon he was about to be impeached and probably condemned and even charged high crimes and misdemeanors and possibly facing jail time, and he stepped down as a result of his Watergate involvement, in which his Watergate involvement. Hold on, Don. I'm going to mute you for 10 seconds. His Watergate involvement, he was in a position where he was going to lose his title as president. So instead, he stepped down. In many cases, he took the high road. But as a result, Don, I muted you a second, okay? I'll let you back in a minute.
I'm muted, so go ahead.
Okay, so Richard Nixon left office with his head between his tail, but he resigned. He didn't get sent to prison, which actually at the time made a lot of people mad. You know, they wanted him to be prosecuted. But then we had Haldeman, Ehrlichson, John Dean, and several others who were under scrutiny. Either way, they set up an independent White House council, and it was an independent body that would examine frivolous activities by the executive branch. It didn't necessarily have to be a president. It could be an advisor. But there was things that happened after that, including one of Nixon's advisors was under scrutiny at Club 54 in New York for using and possibly selling drugs. So anyways, I'm going to step in now quickly into the Bush v. Gore example, and then we're going to let Don in. In Bush v. Gore, the main discrepancy in counting and recounting the votes, in which there was only a 538 vote split between Gore and Bush, it was only 538 votes, but the reason the Supreme Court hijacked it from the Florida Supreme Court is because when Gore asked for a recount in Florida, he only included 4 counties. One of them was Broward, and they were mainly highly populated counties. And the Supreme Court used one of the statutes in the Constitution that said it was unfair because not all were included. Like you can't apply certain conditions to 4 counties and not the rest. So the Supreme Court didn't think that was fair, and they stopped the process, they stopped the motion, and the votes were no longer counted, and they handed the election to George Bush because at the time he was still ahead by 538 votes. Now I'm still just trying to condense that. Fast forward to right now, where the Supreme Court justice that's in charge right now, 4 out of the 7, I believe it was, voted in favor of the invisible Trump, who's not president, that any official act of duty conducted by a president, which could be a broad range of things, it could be like ordering the execution of the #1 Mexican cartel person, or going to war with Colombia without getting 60-day approval from Congress. Like any official act by a president could be acceptable. And that's a really huge thing because it gives a lot of discretion to the executive branch. It takes away a lot of the war-making power of the legislative branch, and it could really affect the next 10 years in American government. So with that, I was going to read one more page, but I'll wait till I'm done. Don, how are you tonight?
Hello?
You're not
Yes.
you're not on mute. You're not on mute anymore.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm fine. Thank you very much. How are you?
I feel calmer tonight.
Okay. You feel what?
Calm.
Oh, okay. Well, that's it. That means you're in a good space.
I was on the phone with the IRS for 2 days, trying to help a 20-year-old who moved 3 times, and we got a hold of an actual live person, and they still couldn't verify their identity. Like, it was so frustrating.
Yeah, no, the IRS is frustrating on purpose because they want to make sure that whatever they're doing, they have time to do things, and also, if you can understand what I'm saying, they need time because they're short-staffed to be able to do whatever it is the person needs to be done. But they have to have an excuse beforehand to make sure the person understands that there might be a delay or it might take longer than normal. So,
can I just give you two examples? The person that I helped, she electronically mailed in her first 1040 through in Texas. Then I had to correct her taxes because she forgot a big W-2. So that means the amount of money she got back was way different. But by that time, she was living in Phoenix, and now she moved back to Minnesota. And the only way you can track the amended X return is through a zip code. So I had to put 4 zip codes in, and none of them worked. So then I had to call 2 different departments. I gave all the information, and it still didn't work. So we're meeting at the IRS office tomorrow with a representative.
good. Yeah, no, the IRS, they have extremely intricate jobs that they have to perform, and one of them is also security. And her moving 3 or 4 times different states in order for them to verify all of that. Again, that's what I meant. It takes time.
Right, and with the amount of information I gave them, they could not legally verify us because we might have been off by $2 on a return.
I'm not going to say I don't know anything about the actual delays if they find irregularities. I don't know about that.
Well, we're meeting a live human being tomorrow in the IRS office, and hopefully that person will straighten it out.
All right, I hope so too. God bless.
So, what is your opinion on what will be either the public dealings with this new Supreme Court ruling, the direct impact, the sideline impact, the impact on the election, on how Clump's going to cry wolf maybe if the election doesn't go his way, or how he might behave if he wins? How do you think it's going to go down?
Now, what was the first thing you wanted? What's the main question that you were asking?
The topic is judicial activism, where judges do not behave, they don't answer questions, or they don't use, their job is to interpret laws made throughout the history of the U.S. and interpret legal jurisprudence, which means they look at laws from the past, they examine them, and then they make a ruling. And if they use any type of impartiality or personal gain, then it's looked at as bad, or it's to be scrutinized because they're using their office for personal gain.
Okay, so this, you're talking about the Stormy Daniels.
No, I'm talking about the Supreme Court ruling that says that any president who acts in the official duty, according to SCOTUS, can do whatever they want and not get any retribution.
Yeah, that's in a way that's true.
They just ruled it.
Well, the immunity is what you're talking about, and the main thing is to find out what official duties is, and that is, that's where the SCOTUS already ruled that he does have limited, immunity. So,
well, do you think John Roberts has more? Do you think John Roberts has more influence than all the other judges, like Alito or Clarence Thomas, or do you think they're in like a mini gang?
I think that Roberts is pretty much just the biggest asshole of them all. So he has the loudest voice. But they all have those six have some kind of equal standing amongst themselves. And so I don't think there's a real leader. The sad thing about it is virtually all of them are probably, card-carrying KKK members as a leader.
I don't think as a Catholic mother, Amy Comey Barrett is not a KKK member.
It doesn't matter. She's still is a supporter to a large extent.
Okay, I'm seeing if I'm going to read something to you, okay?
Okay.
Just a minute. I'm trying to get to the right page. Hold on. So I just want to tell you something that I told you guys a question last week. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay. Remember last week when I was telling you guys about a young guy who's a Columbia University, New York student, and he made a joke on Instagram that said, now that a president has full immunity for their actions, Joe Biden can go in with SEAL Team 6 and take out Donald Trump and, just get rid of him, basically. Like, I think he was just trying to show how Joe Biden could just flex his muscles and do whatever he wanted with Trump and his campaign or whatever. And it was a joke. It was an actual joke. And then all these Republican pundits came after him, including some high officials on the campaign team for Trump, saying that he should be like socially banished from Instagram.
I haven't heard anything about this particular situation or instance.
Well, I'm just saying he made a joke, and then they took it seriously. Your phone's rattling without. You're gonna have to mute yourself a minute. There's too many voices.
I don't have anybody here with me.
There's somebody in the background. I'm by myself.
Nope. I'm here by myself.
Are you in your car?
No, I do live near the freeway, but I'm not in my car.
Okay, let me just read this quick. Can you be quiet for a sec?
Go ahead.
The Supreme Court's stunning ruling giving presidents immunity from prosecution for official acts raises serious questions about the orders issued by the commander-in-chief to the military, especially if those commands clearly violate the U.S. or international law. So, for example, Joe Biden could order like a blanket uranium bomb over Gaza because if he chose to be an official act, it couldn't be challenged in the United States legal system. A commander-in-chief with broad immunity from criminal prosecution would have more power and leeway from issuing controversial orders that the military in most cases obligated to carry out from the main I'm stopping that now, but the other thing Joe Biden could do is if he lost the election, he could challenge an official act in which every state would have to recount the votes if it was official. So he could play the same tricks that Trump plays.
Well, he's not going to be in it. So.
Did you know right now at this particular moment, Joe Biden is choosing not to drop out?
Well, he won the debate, so he really doesn't need to drop out. the thing is that he has so much pressure from everybody. He's got 9 Democrats in the legislature who are requesting that he step down, and it's basically because he might be a drawdown to their campaign chances. So they're going. The Hollywood donors have said that they're going to be leaving, even though he's got enough money in his campaign chest. He still is beholden to them because most of that money is theirs. And then the populace, general populace, is wavering, but they are still behind Joe Biden because there is no alternative, and we as general populace understand that. Everybody, the GOP, Democrats, whatever. So there's a probability that there's going to be a new candidate, and the independents are going to be the ones who make the decision because their vote is going to have to be cast. The Democrats are going to cast it as Democrat no matter what, but the independents are going to have to determine if the candidate is going to be good for the country.
The campaign, what is the obligation of a standing president who has a donor chest? If he drops out, does it just cross over to the DNC, or will some donors want their money back?
There will be probably some donors who want their money back, but the money is going to be the Biden campaign's money. So he'll be able to distribute it however he wants if he does not think he's going to be in another race or the race again or whatever the case may be. But it'll be his money to do as he will.
Well, it's kind of precarious. Just to make things easy, I think that he should have dropped out just because there's more clarity to the situation.
To what? I'm not sure clarity for what.
Like knowing that he dropped out and he's not going to drop dead in office, and replacing him with someone who is medically competent, it would give people more assurance.
I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about.
So let's say Joe Biden dropped out and they had to decide between Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, or another leading Democratic governor. That would provide more clarity.
Yes, it would. I mean, anything provides more clarity if he's stepping out of the race. I mean, if he stays in the race, there is no clarity. He's going to have to tough it out. But in the last week or week and a half, he's had, I guess, 2 different Parkinson's doctors visit him somewhere. I'm not sure if it was Camp David or not. But they visited him, and we're going to have to see what their assessment is. He has some obvious degenerative issues, and it's normal for a person that age. And so if he does drop out, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, and I would have to reconnoiter to figure out how best the new candidate would go up against an old candidate where I don't have any. I'm not scared of Mr. Trump, mainly because his agenda is to more or less destroy the democracy and the Constitution, which in essence would be a benefit for people of color. We would no longer have the constraints of some of the constitutional inequities, and we would be able to start building our own constitution, or when I say our own, I'm talking about a more democratic constitution that is more, just generally favorable to people who have been underserved.
Most Republic
landowners only.
Yeah, the people like Black and Latino, they would lose certain positions they have in protections they have in education and government. Because if Project 2025 is implemented, a lot of the civil servant jobs would also be at risk. And so would high positions in universities if it's affected by federal funding.
Correct.
So then I just want to bring up one point. I talked to a Lebanese American in this past week who put a ridiculous post up. And he basically said, I'm going to vote for it was like a GIF, like a GIF. He said, I'm going to vote for the felon who gave up all his riches to take 34 felonies and serve his country versus Joe Biden, who stayed in office to become rich. And it was just like this ridiculous comment. And Joe Biden didn't become president to stay rich or get rich. He's doing things that follow his conscience. And Donald Trump did not. He became president to have personal gain. He didn't give up any of his wealth to become president, but he sure gave up his autonomy. He's under a lot more scrutiny than he's ever been, even after he left office. So if he gave up anything, he gave up privacy. Well, then I reminded the Lebanese American that when he came to this country 10 to 20 years ago, he was an immigrant. And see, these Republicans, they're basing all their facts on the horde of immigrants who have been filtering into the country, and they think that all those immigrants are going to turn into Democratic voters.
Correct. And, the thing is that they're going to be right, but at what cost? Essentially, we're going to have people who can't even speak the language, running entire cities. And we'll have, the Americans are, who have been here, I trace my lineage back to around the 1840s, 1846.
Yes.
And so it could have been even before then. So I, feel that I have just as many rights as any American. And for us to, more or less give away those rights because people cannot maintain basically a population. That's a sad commentary for the people who, quote unquote, founded our nation. They're not taking the lead. They're falling back with, things they make them soft, like welfare program. Both parties do that. Same-sex marriages, other things.
The problem with the politics nowadays is the Republicans approach it from the standpoint of who is worthy. Like a European, let's say there's Europeans coming in from Poland and Germany and Denmark. They're not going to go after those people. Only the people south of the border who are coming from poor countries of bad economies and inner civil wars, those are the people they're targeting. They're the criminalized element of the immigration system. So the Republicans conflate it by choosing people of color as the bad guys.
Well, that's because it's always been like that. These other people are non-threatening. The African American, let me say Africans, are the only natural enemy or competitor to white people, to white men. And so he's extremely afraid of Africans because they're, as I always say, bigger, stronger, faster, smarter. And so you've got real combative issues from people who are competitive, who, yet know that they have to have the services of other people. And
no, I know Africans who work 3 jobs. And they're
Right.
paying their fair share of taxes.
Absolutely, and they're, because they understand what the work ethic is, and that's why the immigration situation is actually applauded by the GOP economists, because they know that we needed help in our labor markets, because there are no white people or black people anymore who are going out on the cotton fields and picking cotton or grapes or anything else that's on a farm, or they're cleaning toilets and things like that. They'd rather just stay on welfare rolls and live like I don't know, kings or heathens, either one. But the thing is that the nation is dependent on labor. That's how we make our money in the capitalistic laissez-faire economy, is labor. And if you can't, if you don't have enough labor in your own, you import. And that's what we've been doing. And here we are. As you know my story that I used to, when I was a kid, I used to go down to National City by San Diego, and I loved watching all the cars go by the border. And there'd be miles, 10, 15 miles of cars coming through in the morning with labor, and they would go back at night. And these miles, 15-mile cars, all the way to almost to Pendleton, or Oceanside. So these places these laborers are necessary for these places to sustain themselves in America. So
well, I have Mexican friends who lived here. They were illegal, and they still had their own businesses and contributed to the economy. I don't know. I'm not sure how they paid their taxes, though.
Okay.
Well, anyways, we only have 15 minutes left, so I'm going to read something out of my political science book called Postmodern Legal Movements. And I'm just going to summarize quick. So you can put yourself on mute for 8 minutes.
Go ahead.
You have to put yourself on mute. I can't do it. Okay?
I'm on mute.
Okay. I'll call you back in a few minutes. During the first part of this century, which the book's talking about the 1900s, the study of jurisprudence was like an inductive science. Principles of laws were pragmatically derived from the raw data of appellate opinions, much in the same way the laws of nature were derived from scientific experiments. Law students were instructed on how to dissect appellate court cases, like medical students were instructed to dissect cadavers, both dissected for purpose of discovering the universal truth of their objects. In conceptualization in this era was also the substantive due process tradition of constitutional law, a time when the Supreme Court incorporated common law concepts of free contract with the Constitution and froze the meaning of liberty in the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. I think that's the Equal Clause Amendment. The court thereby prevented state and federal governments from regulating social and economic affairs. Langdonian formalism thus became the dominant constitutional jurisprudence. But as Grant Gilmore colorfully stated, a hurricane howled the foundation, slipped away. The wisdom of the past could never be saved. The crucible events that brought constitutional formalism to the knees was the confrontation between the New Deal Supreme Court and the progressives associated with President Roosevelt's New Deal. Also important was the work of the great dissenters. Holmes and Louis Brandeis authored strong dissents in the economic due process decisions of the Supreme Court. Holmes and Brandeis provided scathing critiques of Langdonian formalism that were read and studied by the New Deal progressives in the 1920s. Following an example, a group of these legal scholars and teachers emerged, offering a response and critique of the Supreme Court's substantive due process of decisions. Academic battles waged by legal realists, political and constitutional crisis created the Supreme Court's unwillingness to accept New Deal social welfare legislation and general discontent with the formal reasoning of the law in general, and shook the foundation of the age of faith. So I'm going to skip on to the next paragraph. But after JFK after he died, and Lyndon Johnson put in his own version of poverty alleviation programs, the Supreme Court was more cool in those days and they adapted to it. So I got one more thing to read. The realistic movement of judicialism also provided legal scholars with the interpretive ideas for reconstructing modern jurisprudence along the lines of contextual and purposeful understanding of the law. It was insisting that one always needed to look to purpose in order to interpret even the plain meaning of words, that the realists unfroze rules, shattering their brittle form and dissolving them back to constituent policy goals. In other words, in the long run, the highest level judicial participants caved into what the people wanted. So it doesn't matter how much legal jurisprudence they studied or the long-term historical effects of those decisions, they often sided with their judicial activism, which is mean they use their incarnate nature to influence a decision that was made. Now, Don, you can rejoin us now. Are you there?
I'm here.
So basically what I'm trying to say is I wish I had a book called The Badly Flawed Election about Bush v. Gore, and I had a lot of other judicial analysts named Lawrence Tribe who dissected the whole Bush v. Gore election. And there was also a number of other cases that I didn't have time to do today. But the overall arch of this program tonight is just looking back at the actual human flaws of the top three branches and how they no longer are balancing each other out. It's a partisan endgame, and people are fighting for blood to win.
That's the nature of the beast. To win, you've got, that's what it all is about. That's why when, it's so difficult when you hear Trump say that the servicemen or dead servicemen were losers and suckers. You don't step on the people who got you here, and we have to, kind of give everybody the credit who got us here. So when you got stuff like that, the popular sentiment, on average, will win. And so that sentiment, if it's upheld by a lot of people who are not for the veterans, then that's something they have to live with. It's like, the length of term of abortion, if at all. Those are things that we have to sign up.
That's another bogus entity, like using the invisible constituency of unborn children. Now, I want to say something. Donald Trump just turned 78. SCOTUS, the Supreme Court justices, are not going to gain anything by protecting him. He'll be dead in 5 or 10 years. So are they getting paid? Is someone paying them behind the scenes? What's their motive? To weaken the federal government and the executive branch. by making it more powerful.
But they're trying to decentralize. But I don't understand they're trying to decentralize.
Because by giving the president full immunity over any kind of act that's official, whether it's criminal or not, is going to implode the presidency. It's going to allow for dictatorship.
There's nothing we can do about it. The SCOTUS has just made that ruling. And, there's not, you heard Trump say he can go out on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and nothing will happen. So I don't know what people are so up in arms about. This is nothing new. He's already said several things. He's already, they admit that he sleeps with his book Mein Kampf on his bedroom table. So there's nothing, when he says he's a mob, he's had more crimes than Al Capone. He's making a reference that he's proud of. He's proud to be a mobster. He's been a mobster for a long, most of his life, pretty much. And so he's very, very happy that he's able to say that he's gotten more felonies than Al Capone, and he's still going to be essentially going to be president.
There was an article in Slate magazine about his behavior on the set of The Apprentice, and one of the producers had inside information on just how radical and ridiculous it was, but I actually lost the link, and I have to read it tonight at work.
Okay.
So I'm going to touch base with Bianchi and Suzette. There's another show tomorrow night at the same time. You don't have to join unless you want to. And I'm going to get some more research done.
All right. Well, I'll be heading to Vegas tomorrow, and I'll be there all week for the NAACP convention. So if you wanted to see what's going on, it should be on YouTube, or it should be live streamed. But you can probably plug into some of the...
Well, that's convenient for you that it's in your own home state.
Yeah, it's been here once before, and I believe 14, and then it hadn't been here like 25 years. So,
do you think that they're gonna, at this time of year, are they gonna endorse Joe Biden?
We don't endorse anything. That's why I have affinity for both sides. This game that people are playing, pitting one party against the other, is self-defeating. It doesn't push us forward. It's like if you're a race car driver.
Well, what do they have to say about people like RFK Jr.?
I don't know about that.
Are they going to have Cornel West be a speaker?
I don't know. They could.
Okay, keep me posted, and maybe you can give us a summary next week.
Yeah, well, Biden will be there next week, depending on the circumstances, but he will make a speech Tuesday.
Great. Say hi to Pat. I'm going to end the show now. I have to go to work.
No problem. Have fun at work. Take care of yourself. Stay calm, okay? That's the human way.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good tonight. God bless you and have a good night.
God bless you. Have a good night.